What if the war you're watching unfold on your screen right now? The rockets blazing through midnight skies, the names of ancient lands repeating like a curse on every news anchor's tongue was never really about politics? What if every headline, every summit, every sanctioned threat was actually the echo of a story written not in ink, but in eternity? This war, the one between Israel and Iran, did not begin in the 20th century. It did not begin with borders, generals, or gas pipelines. No, this war was forged in the breath of prophecy, and the battlefield was drawn across the bloodlines of Abraham himself. You see, before Jerusalem was divided, before Persia raised its banners, before Iran existed by name, there was a desert. And in that desert stood a man with dust on his feet, stars in his eyes, and a covenant etched into his very soul. Abraham, not a warrior, not a prophet yet, just a man walking with God. And it was there, beneath a sky stitched with fear and silence, that the voice of the Most High thundered, "To your offspring I will give this land." Genesis 12:7. But here's the twist. That promise wasn't as simple as it sounded, because Abraham had two sons, not just Isaac, the child of promise, but Ishmael, the child of the desert, born of flesh, born of fear, born of waiting too long for a miracle. Can you imagine the weight in Abraham's chest, holding two sons, one conceived in trust, the other in desperation? And yet, God blessed them both. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will surely bless him. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac. Genesis 17:20-21. Did you catch that? Two sons, two lines, two destinies, not in conflict because of blood, but because of purpose. One received the covenant, the other the blessing. From Ishmael would rise the Arab world, vast, fierce, blessed, and burning with legacy. From Isaac came Jacob, and from Jacob, Israel, 12 tribes with fire in their bones, and a covenant in their veins. Now pause for a moment. Imagine you are Abraham, watching your sons grow, one in the shadow of a mountain of promise, the other in the wild, sun-scorched terrain of survival. Would you be able to sleep knowing what was coming? Because this wasn't just family drama. This was the divine blueprint of nations, and its echoes still rattle across the hills of Jerusalem and the deserts of Tehran. But that's not where it ends, because while the world sees a modern feud between Israel and Iran, heaven sees something older, much older. Let me take you back even further. Before Abraham, before Isaac, before the covenant was carved into flesh, there was a flood, and when the waters receded, 3 sons walked off the ark, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And it was Japheth, the quiet brother, the one rarely spoken of in Sunday sermons, who fathered Madai. Genesis 10:2. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai. Now, most readers skip over that. Just another genealogy. But buried in that forgotten name, Madai, lies a revelation. Because from Madai would come the Medes. And when they merged with the rising power of Persia, they forged a kingdom of silver and iron, the Medo-Persian Empire. Yes, the very empire that crushed Babylon and would one day become Iran. You heard me. Iran's bloodline reaches back not just to kings and shahs, but to Noah. So now we have 3 branches, 3 sons, 3 destinies. Ishmael, father of the Arab nations. Isaac, the root of Israel. Japheth, through Madai, the ancient ancestor of Persia, now Iran. And they're all colliding. In your lifetime, in your headlines, in your prayers. This isn't about missiles. It's about inheritance. This isn't about oil. It's about obedience. The war you're watching, it was never about borders. It's about bloodlines, spiritual ones. You may see tanks on the ground, but angels and demons are watching ancient words unfold. And if you still think this is just politics, just news, just nations, friend, you are missing the real war, because this is spiritual. This is prophetic. This is biblical. Imagine standing in Jerusalem. The temple, God's holy house, burned to the ground, stones blackened with ash, walls that once echoed with prayers, now silent. The Babylonians had come like a storm, and they didn't just conquer, they humiliated. They dragged God's chosen people away like cattle, fathers, mothers, children, all exiled from Zion, stripped of identity, of hope, of home. It should have been the end. But prophecy doesn't bend to tyrants, because long before Jerusalem fell, a whisper had gone out from the mouth of Jeremiah. When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my good promise to bring you back. Jeremiah 29:10. 70 years. That's how long God said the exile would last. But who could bring Israel back from the ashes? Who would dare challenge Babylon? Who could speak mercy into rubble? Then, from the east, came a name no one expected. Cyrus, a Persian king, a pagan, a man with no scrolls, no covenant, no bloodline of Abraham. And yet, Isaiah wrote his name 150 years before he was born. This is what the Lord says to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I take hold of. Isaiah 45. Let that sink in. God calls Cyrus, a foreigner, a king from the land we now call Iran, his anointed. The same title given to priests and prophets. How? Why? Because our God doesn't work on human terms. He doesn't need a permission from religious elites to move. He simply moves. And Cyrus, without fully understanding, became a vessel of divine will. He issued a decree. The Jews were free to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. The chains fell off. The hammers rang again. Stones stacked. Hope returned. Do you feel the weight of that? Iran, ancient Persia, was once used by God to restore Israel. But the story didn't end with Cyrus, because where there is light, darkness lurks. Years passed. Persia changed. New kings rose. And in the court of Xerxes, the man known in the Bible as Ahasuerus, evil took root again. Not through swords, but through whispers. A man named Haman rose to power. Elegant, dangerous, a snake in royal clothing. And he had a plan to exterminate every Jew across the empire. Not one spared. An ancient genocide dressed in royal decree. Do you see how fast the tide can turn? How the same land that once gave Israel freedom now plotted her extinction? But God was not silent. He had placed someone in the palace, a girl no one saw coming. Esther, a Jewish orphan, raised in obscurity, crowned as queen in a foreign land. The enemy didn't know her name, but heaven did. And when the hour came, Mordecai, her cousin, her mentor, spoke words that still thunder through generations. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Esther 4:14. Let that echo in your own soul. For such a time as this. Esther made her choice. She walked into the throne room, uninvited, unwelcome, but utterly fearless. And with trembling lips and unshakable courage, she revealed Haman's plan. The plot was crushed. Israel was spared. But something spiritual had shifted. Because within Persia's soil, a seed had been planted. A tension, a spirit. a hatred that refused to die. You see, even though the Jews were delivered, even though justice was served, that same spirit of destruction didn't disappear. It waited, like a serpent under stone, waiting for its moment to rise again. Now ask yourself, what happened to that spirit? Did it die with Haman? Or did it find a new body, a new nation, a new microphone? Centuries passed, empires fell, but Persia, Iran, remained. And in 1979, it rose again, not as an empire this time, but as a theocracy. The Islamic Revolution swept through like wildfire. The Shah was overthrown, and a new government emerged, not just with a flag, but with a mission: to destroy Israel. From its inception, the new Iran made its intentions clear. Israel was called the Little Satan. Her existence was declared a crime. Her name, a curse to be erased from the earth. And it wasn't just rhetoric. It became policy. Iran funded terror. Hezbollah, Hamas, militias in the shadows, missiles launched, civilians targeted, fear ignited. But beneath the geopolitics, beneath the nuclear talk, can you hear the echo? It's Haman's voice, risen from the dust, whispering again. This isn't just history repeating. It's prophecy awakening. Because when ancient hatred survives across millennia, it's not political, it's spiritual. And if the spirit that whispered to Haman now whispers to Tehran, then we must stop asking, what should we do politically? And start asking, what is God doing prophetically? Picture this. A man kneels in silence, trembling, his face gaunt, lips dry from weeks without food. The room is dim. The weight of unseen things presses against his chest. This man is Daniel. He's been fasting for 21 days. No bread, no wine, no meat. Only prayer, only questions, only silence. He's pleading with heaven, begging for understanding, for clarity, for prophecy. But nothing comes. Not a whisper, not a dream, only stillness. Until the atmosphere splits open. A being appears before him, radiant, otherworldly, shimmering like lightning. And this angel, breathless and shaken, utters something few understand, even today. The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. Daniel 10:13. Let that settle over you like thunder. This was no earthly prince, no human soldier. This was a principality, a spiritual intelligence assigned to Persia, a dark, territorial force powerful enough to delay an angel of God. Can you even begin to grasp the scale of this war? Not just armies clashing in deserts, but spirits warring in the air. And if there was once a demonic power behind ancient Persia, we must ask, has it vanished? Or has it simply changed faces? Because what if the principality that resisted Daniel's prayer still rules behind the curtain of modern Iran? What if the same ancient darkness that once whispered to Haman now breathes through microphones, policies, and war rooms? What if it never left? Ephesians 6:12 tears the veil from this reality. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. The real war is not with missiles, not with treaties, not even with ideologies. The real war is in the realm just beyond your senses, where principalities plot, where ancient hatreds burn with new names, where darkness wears a suit and smiles behind podiums. Look again at Iran. This isn't just a government with grievances. It's a nation built on an apocalyptic vision. Its constitution denies Israel's right to exist, not just to coexist, to exist. Its proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, are not just rebels. They are weapons of ideology, fueled, armed, aimed, all carrying the same ancient message: remove Israel from the earth. But here's the terrifying part. It's not just military, it's spiritual. These words are not random. They are echoes of a war that began long before the Islamic Revolution, long before Persia, long before Babylon. This war began in the bloodline of Abraham, in the tension between Isaac and Ishmael, in the blessing that divided nations, and it has not stopped. You see, when a spirit is left unchallenged, it doesn't retire, it recruits. So while modern media shows us missiles and maps, heaven sees thrones and dominions clashing. Can you see it? The spiritual pulse beneath the physical chaos? Now let's go deeper, because there's more. A prophecy, ancient, terrifying, and perhaps unfolding before our very eyes. The sky turns black in Ezekiel's vision. The wind howls across the plains, and then he sees it. A storm rolling in from the edges of time, not of clouds or rain, but of war, of nations, of wrath. Ezekiel chapter 38 doesn't open like a poem. It opens like a prophecy locked in iron. The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, Set your face against Gog, of the land of Magog. Ezekiel 38, 1, 2. Now, who is Gog? And where is Magog? For centuries, scholars have wrestled with these names. Some say Magog refers to regions near the Caucasus, Central Asia, perhaps even modern-day Russia. Others believe Gog is a title, a prophetic archetype, the embodiment of an anti-God world leader. But here's what we do know. This Gog leads a massive military coalition. And among the names listed, unmistakably, chillingly, is one you know well. Persia, Cush, and Put will be with them. Ezekiel 38:5. Persia, modern-day Iran. Did you catch that? A prophecy written over 2,500 years ago places Iran at the center of a final day alliance, marching with others toward one small land, one target: Israel. The vision isn't vague. It's thunderously specific. This isn't metaphor. It's mobilization. Ezekiel sees a vast, coordinated force of nations rising together, with Persia marching among them. The goal? Wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Now pause with me. Look at today's headlines. Iran forging deeper ties with Russia. Military drills with China. Funding terror proxies across the Middle East. Meeting behind closed doors with nations whose ideologies should clash. And yet, they find unity in one obsession: erasing Israel. Can you see it? The alignment of nations. The rhetoric growing darker. The alliances growing colder. The pieces of Ezekiel's puzzle are no longer just ancient names. They're modern headlines: Persia, Russia, North Africa, the East. Different tongues, different cultures, same ambition. And this time, it's not about oil or land or economy. It's about covenant. You see, the reason these nations march is not simply politics. It's because God made a promise to Israel. And the forces of darkness want to undo that promise. Because if they can erase Israel, they believe they can erase the covenant itself. But God will not allow it. And Ezekiel tells us what happens next. This is what will happen in that day. When Gog attacks the land of Israel, my hot anger will be aroused. Ezekiel 38:18. Then comes judgment. I will execute judgment with plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, burning sulfur. Ezekiel 38:22. This is not symbolic. It's apocalyptic. A storm of divine fury unleashed on those who dare to raise a sword against the people of promise. Missiles will not save them. Alliances will not shield them. Diplomacy will not quiet the roar of heaven, because this battle belongs to the Lord. And so I will show my greatness and my holiness, and I will make myself known in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am the Lord. Ezekiel 38:23. That's the point. Not politics, not survival, but that the world would see and know that Yahweh reigns. Imagine it. The armies of the earth, poised to strike. And then, fire, not from weapons, from heaven. Hail that burns, earth that splits, a storm no radar can predict, a war no general can win. Can you tell the difference between the wrath of men and the wrath of God? Because in this coming storm, only one force will stand, and it won't be Gog, it won't be Persia, it won't be the coalitions. It will be the King, the one who neither slumbers nor sleeps, the one who made the covenant, and will defend it with thunder. Darkness surrounds Jerusalem. The armies of the earth have encircled her. Drones scream overhead. The desert shakes beneath steel. From every border, they come. North, south, east, west. A new world order, forged in hatred and blood, stands united for one purpose: to erase the name of Israel. And in that moment, when it seems all is lost, when every covenant feels like a broken promise, something happens, not in silence, but in glory, not from policy, but from the sky. Zechariah 14 splits the veil with terrifying clarity. Then the Lord will go out and fight against those nations as he fights on a day of battle. On that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives. Zechariah 14:3-4. Do you feel the earth tremble? This isn't allegory. This isn't metaphor. This is the return of the King, the same Mount of Olives where Jesus once wept, where he prayed in agony, where he ascended into heaven, wrapped in clouds of glory. Acts 1:11. This same Jesus, who has been taken from you into heaven, will come back in the same way you have seen him go. And now he does. His feet touch the ground, and when they do, the mountain splits. A valley opens wide. The landscape itself trembles at his arrival, because he's not coming back as a baby in a manger, not as a suffering servant, not as a rabbi on a donkey. He's coming back as a warrior king, as the commander of heaven's armies, as the fulfillment of every prophecy. Revelation 19 captures it in fire. Heaven opened, and there before me was a white horse, whose rider is called Faithful and True. With justice he judges and makes war. On his robe and on his thigh he has this name written: King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Can you see it? The sky ripped open like a scroll. The armies of heaven behind him, eyes blazing like fire. And on his robe, not a presidential seal, but blood. His blood. The blood of covenant. The blood of victory. This is not diplomacy. This is dominion. This is the end of man's rebellion and the beginning of the king's reign. Every power that rose against Israel, every voice that mocked his word, every principality that whispered death into the minds of men, silenced, shattered, undone. The war that began in the sands of Abraham's journey, that bled through Isaac and Ishmael, that echoed through the empire of Persia, that rose again in modern Iran, ends here, on the Mount of Olives, with a king not campaigning, but conquering. And this is where it gets real for you, because when he comes, every eye will see him. Revelation 1:7. Every knee will bow. Philippians 2:10. And every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. There will be no debates, no news panels, no spin, only truth, and the one who wears it as a crown. So I ask you, as you watch the world spiral, as you see the headlines turn darker, will you be ready? Or will you be caught gazing at the sky, not in wonder, but in terror? Because the King is not delayed. He is prepared. And when he returns, he's not coming to ask questions. He's coming to take his throne. Why do the nations rage? Why do kings and rulers gather in secret rooms, whispering of war and domination? Why does Iran threaten? Why does Israel stand alone, surrounded, yet still unbroken? Why do the nations conspire and the peoples plot in vain? Psalm 2:1. That question was asked long ago, in a psalm older than empires. And God's answer? The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. I have installed my King on Zion, my holy mountain. Psalm 2:4-6. Do you hear that? While missiles rise, while alliances tighten, while men plan and spirits rage, heaven is not pacing. Heaven is not worried. Heaven is waiting, because the throne is not empty, and the King is not late. Everything you've seen, the spiritual battles, the bloodlines, the hatred burning from ancient altars to modern microphones, is leading somewhere. And that somewhere is Zion, where the King has been appointed, where his name has been declared. And no force, political or spiritual, can overthrow what heaven has decreed. Let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why the enemy targets Israel with such obsession? Why from Pharaoh to Haman, from Hitler to Hezbollah, the hatred never dies? Because it's not just about land. It's about the throne. Israel is not just a nation. It is a covenant. It is a signature on history, bearing the handwriting of God. And that covenant, that promise, is what the enemy fears most. Because if Israel still stands, then God's word still stands. And if God's word still stands, then the enemy's time is running out. That's what this war is really about. Not dirt, not pride, not oil. It's about proving God wrong. And he will not be proven wrong. Now, I want you to hear this. If you're watching this thinking, this is overwhelming, what can I do? I'm just one person. Hear this. You're not powerless in this battle. You're not just a spectator in some prophetic movie. You're a watchman. You are a gatekeeper of prayer. Psalm 122:6 says, "Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you be secure." This isn't poetic fluff. This is a command for alignment. When you pray for Jerusalem, when you intercede for Israel, when you cry out for discernment in these dark hours, you are standing between prophecy and fulfillment. You are adding your voice to heaven's agenda. And don't think for a second that your prayers go unnoticed. Revelation 5:8 tells us that our prayers rise like incense before the throne. Can you imagine that? Your quiet cry in a dark room, rising through realms of glory, becoming part of the very aroma that surrounds the King. That's what's at stake. This isn't just about reading prophecy. It's about living in alignment with it. So here's what I ask of you right now. If your spirit is stirred, if your eyes are beginning to see, don't scroll past this moment. Stand with the King. Declare it in the comments. I stand with the King. Let the world know you are not neutral. Let heaven know you are not asleep. Pray for Jerusalem. Intercede for the nations. Watch the signs. And when the trumpet sounds, when heaven opens, may he find you not hiding, but ready, not in fear, but in faith, not confused by the chaos, but aligned with the coming. Because the war is real, but so is the victory. And the King, your King, is on his way. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the sand under your feet, the heat of the Tartar above, the wind whispering ancient names across the hills. You are standing in the land where it all began, where Abraham walked, where Isaac was laid on an altar, where prophets bled and kings fell, and covenants were carved into the fabric of time. From that desert came a promise. From that promise came a people. And from that people came the storm. A storm that moved through Egypt, through Babylon, through Persia, through Rome. A storm that never died, because it wasn't just history. It was destiny. And now, here you are, watching missiles fall on the same land where angels once sang over shepherds, reading headlines from cities built on blood and prophecy, hearing threats from nations that once bowed to kings anointed by God Himself. And you begin to realize you are living in the pages of the Bible, not just reading them. The sands of Genesis are speaking in the tongues of today. The shadows of Daniel still walk the palace corridors. The rage of Haman echoes in the chambers of Tehran. And the voice of the prophets is not silent. It's shouting. Can you hear it? Wake up. Watch. The king is near. Music rises, strings layered with heartbeat percussion. Because the war you're watching, it didn't start in 1948 or in 1979. It began when the serpent whispered in Eden. Did God really say? It began when covenants were given and challenged, when altars were built and desecrated, when a seed of promise was planted and the darkness vowed to destroy it. And that war has never stopped. But neither has the promise, because even as Persia rose, even as Israel was scattered, even as alliances formed and empires burned, one thing never changed. God reigns. His word endures. His king is coming. So when you see Iran shaking its fist, when you hear of coalitions and wars and rumors of wars, don't panic. Don't look away. Lift your eyes. Because every move on the chessboard has already been seen by the one who sits above it all. Let me leave you with this. You were born for this hour. You were chosen to see these things, not to fear, but to discern, not to hide, but to pray, not to shrink back, but to stand. So if your heart burns for truth, if your spirit trembles with the weight of what you now see, do something with it. Drop a comment below. I stand with the King. Let the darkness know you're not asleep. Let the heavens know you're awake. Share this video with someone who still believes this is just politics. Like it. Not for the algorithm, but so it stays visible to others walking in confusion. And if this message stirred something deep within you, consider supporting the channel. Your gifts small or great. Help keep the prophetic word going forward in these final hours. But above all else, pray. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for wisdom. Pray for boldness. Pray to be found faithful when the skies finally split. The war is real. The prophecy is alive. The king is returning. And history was never history. It was the blueprint. And now we live it.